Good evening, hello, hola, whatever. I'm David Reimer with Texas Storm Chasers. It is the 8th of January, 2020. New year, new severe weather season. We don't really have severe weather seasons anymore, it's just whenever Mother Nature wants. So, this is going to be a briefing on the severe weather threat we are anticipating beginning, let's say, 2 to 3 p.m. Friday afternoon and continuing into the late evening hours. Now, the first thing I want to do is look at the latest severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. Now, a couple things I want to emphasize here. One, yeah, there's colors. If you're in the green, yellow, or orange, you're in a severe weather risk for Friday. That's the bottom line. Do not get all tied up on exactly where these lines are drawn right now. Because when the new outlook comes out in about 5 hours, they're going to probably be different in terms of the exact placements. Do not focus where the lines are drawn exactly. Pay attention if you're in any of the colors. Okay? Just throwing that out there. Right now, we have a level 3 risk out of 5 across all of Northeast Texas, East Texas, Southeast Texas, the Brazos Valley, and Eastern North Texas. That level 3 risk means there is a 30% chance of severe weather occurring within 25 miles of your location. Okay? That is for those within or near that risk. The yellow shaded zone, that's the level 2 risk, what we call the standard risk of severe weather. That means you have a 15% chance of severe weather occurring within 25 miles of any given location, like your house. That level 2 risk includes Sherman. For all intents and purposes, based on today's data, it includes all of the DFW Metroplex, Waco, down to Temple, about halfway between San Antonio and Houston, down towards Victoria. All right? And finally, we have a level 1 risk. That is level 1 out of 5. That means a 5% chance of severe weather occurring within 25 miles of a given point, like your house. That, in our case, the western delineations, is essentially the western edge of where we think thunderstorm development will occur Friday afternoon. Again, don't pay exact attention to where these lines are drawn. They're going to change somewhat. If you are in any of the risk zones, you need to pay attention to the weather forecast on Friday. Okay? So, with that all being said, all modes of severe weather look to be on the table for Friday, and we're going to talk a little more about that here in just a moment. First off, I do want to look at severe weather safety tips. Then we'll get into the timeline and specifics of what weather models are showing. Most of you watching this, I think, understand that when a tornado warning is issued, that's when you enact your severe weather safety plan. But what is your severe weather safety plan? Well, if you're in a site-built structure, it's going to be the lowest floor, center room, away from windows, put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Put a helmet on, put on hard-soled shoes if you're in a site-built structure. If you're in an apartment, multi-story structure, a dormitory, something like that, get to the lowest possible floor you can. Get off the top floor at least. Get into the centralmost room you can. Again, put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Get away from windows. Get under an indoor stairwell, an interior windowless hallway, something like that. Again, if you have a helmet, put it on. Otherwise, cover your head to protect your head. Put on hard-soled shoes. Stuff like that to protect yourself from debris. If you're in a manufactured home, a trailer, some might call them, you can't stay in it during a tornado warning. I don't care. You're better off outside. That's the gist of it. Manufactured housing provides a great affordable way to live. Nothing wrong with that, but they do not stand up to even the weakest tornadoes typically. You cannot stay in one. I have literally seen 70-mile-an-hour winds, straight-line winds, roll a trailer over while the bushes right next to it were completely fine. That is the main message I want to throw out here. You cannot be in a manufactured home during a tornado or significant straight-line winds. So, those of you in manufactured houses, you need to pay extra attention because you have to have extra time to move to a safer place, whether it be a nearby gas station, a hotel, neighbor, something like that. So that's that. And if you're in a vehicle, Well, here's a couple tips. And, I mean, we have safety tips available for various types of situations on our website at texasstormchasers.com/safety. I encourage you to head over and take a look at that to catch up and review your severe weather safety plan. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at the latest weather model data coming in for Friday afternoon and evening. The reason I want to do this is just to take a look at the timing and try and narrow the time window down a bit. There's a few caveats, though. One, we are still 2 days out, so there are uncertainties still. What this weather model may show may not be what exactly happens at the time this model shows it, alright? There's still a couple hour window we could shift, a few hours earlier, a few hours later, a bit further west, a bit further east, alright? There's the disclaimers. So we're going to pop ahead to, this is going to be 3 p.m. Friday afternoon. The first thing I'm going to look at is surface dew points. Now, this is going to look a little weird, but essentially the western edge of this green bluish, that is the dry line, or the cold front dry line combination in this case. West of the dry line, no severe weather risk. East of the dry line, that's where it's going to be warm, it's going to be humid, it's going to be pretty cloudy Friday afternoon. You're going to have south-southeasterly winds. In fact, it'll probably have some fog Friday mornings, showers throughout the day Friday. This is at 3 p.m. Notice this model has the dry line still farther west. We're talking near Highway 281 in western North Texas. Now, that's important because by this point, I can't rule out isolated thunderstorm activity forming. And by isolated thunderstorm activity, I mean, well, this isolated thunderstorms, the supercellular type thunderstorms we are concerned about that can produce all modes of severe weather. So we'll see how the rest of the model data comes in tonight, but this one model has been coming in a little farther west and a little quicker with development, which would put more of the DFW Metroplex in a severe weather risk Friday afternoon. This is about the time kids get out of school Friday, so we are going to keep an eye on it. Not a guarantee we're going to be having issues as early as 3 p.m. Friday afternoon in North Texas in the Metroplex, but it's something I want to watch for. It's something we are going to watch for. If we do have discrete thunderstorms develop Friday afternoon in north central Texas and they're able to become the sustained supercells, storms like we saw the evening of October 20th, supercells, they would be capable of producing golf ball to perhaps tennis ball size hail, damaging straight line winds over 70 miles an hour, and based on the amount of instability, moisture, and strong low level wind shear in place, we would have to be concerned with a tornado threat. If everything came together right, and we did have intense supercellular thunderstorms that were kind of out by themselves late Friday afternoon and, well, anywhere in the warm sector, the eastern third of Texas, there would be the potential for a significant tornado. That is something we are going to watch for as we get closer to Friday, but a lot of the time, in terms of significant tornado potential, it depends on a lot of small-scale, mesoscale ingredients that we simply cannot tell you are going to be in place more than, honestly, 12 to 18 hours out. That's kind of the way we're leaning, though, so, okay. That's one potential possibility. If we don't have discrete supercells, okay, that's not a guarantee. Now, let's fast forward to 6 p.m. This is, we're starting to see the squall line form at this point. This would be roughly from, let's just say, Gainesville to DFW to just west of Interstate 35, all the way to almost San Antonio. Again, this is a western kind of outlier model. It may be along or east of 35, but this model's a bit farther west, so that's why I'm saying these severe weather outlook lines aren't etched in stone. They can change. And if this model ends up right, they're going to have to be expanded westward. So that being said, at 6 p.m., we could have a squall line already underway from, let's say, Gainesville to DFW to west of the I-35 corridor all the way to San Antonio. A squall line would have the potential of storms in the squall line, not all of them, producing damaging straight line winds over 70 miles an hour. We could have some quarter to maybe ping pong ball size hail, and we could have those embedded tornadoes, you know, those small tornadoes that tend to spin up in stronger portions of the squall line that also just so happen to have hurricane force straight line winds. That's something we're going to have to watch for as this squall line gets moving east. I don't say this to scare anyone, nor should it, but there is a lot of low-level wind shear Friday evening across the eastern third of Texas. Let me fast forward to 9 p.m., and yeah, you can see this squall line goes bonkers on this model. I mean, you've got a line of severe storms from just east of Sherman all the way down to east of, I mean, what is that? All the way east of Laredo at this point. If this solution pans out, it's going to be busy. It's going to be rocking and rolling Friday night as this squall line moves east. Fast forward to midnight, and you can see the squall line gets stronger as it moves into a more unstable, strongly sheared environment across northeast Texas, East Texas, Southeast Texas. This is going to be a pretty large event in terms of real estate covered in severe weather potential. Squall lines in the winter happen, folks. It's not that unusual. So, while yes, there could be a pretty significant severe weather episode Friday evening with a lot of damaging straight line winds and a tornado threat with some hail, I don't want folks to think this is the apocalyptic EF5 wedges with satellite wedges everywhere. Now, could we have issues like that? If we had discrete supercells fire ahead of that squall line Friday evening, yeah, they could produce significant tornadoes. That is not a guarantee right now. The overall scenario would favor a squall line or a mixed convective mode with a squall line, maybe a few discrete storms just ahead of the squall line, and those discrete storms ahead of the squall line would be the ones to watch for the significant tornado threat. Now, we're going to look just real quick here at winds about 5,000 feet above sea level. These are in knots, by the way. This model is showing winds at 75 miles an hour out of the south at about 5,000 feet above sea level. We're going to jump up to about 18,500 feet above sea level. You can see we still have a lot of wind and this dip in the jet stream. This is what we call a trough going negative tilt. Those of you who watched WFAA back in the day with Steve McCauley, who's now a very excellent professor in North Texas, may remember when he says a trough goes negative tilt, it goes, the energy essentially doubles. That's a lot of lift, and that's why this model shows those thunderstorms intensifying Friday night. And yeah, this is going to be a mainly after sunset event. It is going to be pitch black, and these storms are going to be hauling at 50 to 70 miles an hour. And I mean, of course, once you're east of I-35, I-45, you're in the trees and hills. You're not going to see these things. These things are going to be in the dark. They're going to be moving. A storm chaser's nightmare. I'm not chasing Friday night for one of those reasons. Our team will be out, but I myself will be here doing severe weather coverage. So just looking at a couple other parameters, you can see, yeah, we have instability. And yeah, the little gray, that doesn't look as impressive. This is the cool season. We call it high shear, a lot of wind shear, low instability typically. That is enough wind shear to support severe weather. In the springtime, it flips around. You get a lot of instability, lower shear. And the instability map in the spring, yeah, it would look purple, and I mean, you'd have values 5 times what this model shows. But I mean, that is a lot of instability for the amount of wind shear we're going to have in place. So, all that being said, this is, I'll show this real quick. It's kind of nerdy. This is what we call a skew T. This bottom line here, this is about, well, this is the ground. This is 500 millibars. That's about 18,500 feet above the surface. It's halfway in the atmosphere between the surface and the top of the atmosphere. And then, well, 12 kilometers is about 50,000 feet or so. These are winds, wind barbs. You see, you don't even have to be a meteorologist or a weather wing. You see how those kind of turn? That's what we call curvature with height, turning with height. That's wind shear. Winds at the surface are out of the southeast. Winds several thousand feet up are out of the southwest. There's your spin. And I'll tell you now, this sounding is ripe for rotating thunderstorms. So, yeah, we're going to have a pretty gnarly squall line move across the eastern third, maybe the eastern half of Texas Friday night. The squall line itself, the strongest parts of that squall line could produce damaging winds over 75 miles an hour. We're probably going to have what we call brief tornadoes. They're called quasi-linear convective system, QLCS tornadoes, or mesovortices. Those are those little brief tornadoes that can happen on the leading edge of the squall line sometime in stronger sections. You know how they can bow out, squall lines bow? they sometimes enhance circulations, and I'm going too nerdy as it is, so I'll stop. But again, this is 7 p.m., and you notice we kind of have a cellular-looking mode in North Texas. If that's what we have at 7 p.m. Friday, we're going to have a problem with tornadoes. I'll tell you that now. Squall lines organizing by that point. By 10 o'clock, we have a line of severe thunderstorms extending from southeast Oklahoma, moving east into eastern North Texas, moving into the Brazos Valley from central Texas. And honestly, we could have strong to maybe even severe storms moving towards the middle Texas coast at this point. This is going to be a gnarly squall line, so there's going to be a lot of severe weather warnings Friday evening. This is around midnight Saturday. You can see the squall line looking even stronger in northeast Texas, east Texas, the coastal plains, southeast Texas. Houston, you're going to have a pretty substantial severe weather risk Friday evening too. And y'all don't normally have to deal with the type of severe weather farther north. Keep in mind, Texas is a huge state. We could have several subclimates, and again, nerdy, whatever, but it's going to be pretty active Friday night. So that's why we have the level 3 risk of severe weather. That's why we have a risk of severe weather. And that's pretty much it. So what we'll be watching for over the next day, essentially, as we get closer, we start getting even higher resolution weather model data. We'll be looking for signs that there could be some discrete supercellular development either initially or ahead of that squall line. And keep in mind, we could see little storms pop up all night ahead of that squall line as it moves east across parts of eastern Texas. And any of those little storms will have to be watched for tornado threat. The squall line itself is going to blast across the eastern third to eastern half of Texas Friday afternoon, Friday night, early Saturday. Strongest parts of that line are going to be producing a bunch of lightning, damaging straight line winds, hail, and the possibility for a few tornadoes. Again, once the squall line gets into East Texas, I am concerned about trees falling on homes. We've had fatalities in the past where we've had trees fall on homes during straight line winds. That's going to be a big concern Friday night, because the squall line itself could be producing a lot of damaging wind over a large area of real estate. So that's something we'll watch for, and we'll see if we have an upgrade in the risk zones for portions of East Texas tomorrow. I wouldn't be too shocked, but again, this scale is based on the probability of severe weather occurring. So the orange, 30% chance of severe weather within 25 miles of your house. The yellow is 15%. The green is 5%. The red would be 45%. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's meteorological nerdy terms. If you're in any of the colors, you're in a severe weather risk beginning about 3 to 4 p.m. Friday afternoon, but more likely closer to 5 to 6 p.m. If you're from, like, Tyler to Houston, it could be after 8 o'clock, but the specific time window, we'll be able to narrow that down as we get into tomorrow and then Friday morning. So, with that being said, we are going to be doing live severe weather coverage come Friday. Once any tornado warnings are issued, I'm going to be doing that coverage. We're going to have chasers out in the field. I know at least one of the chasers is planning on doing a live stream, which we'll have on our YouTube channel and embedded into our website. You can follow us on Twitter for real-time severe weather updates. That's the best platform for us to post updates more frequently compared to just like Facebook. And of course, those are all embedded in our free mobile app at Texas Storm Chasers. You can just search for us, Texas Storm Chasers mobile app on your iPhone or Android device. So I'm David Reimer with Texas Storm Chasers. We'll be keeping an eye out on data tonight. We'll have a detailed update out around 6 a.m. Thursday morning.